President and CEO of the San Mateo Area Chamber of Commerce. And I'm very pleased to introduce Lawrence Feinstein this morning. And he's going to talk about a very important subject, I believe, that many of us are facing at this time, lowering our anxiety and calming us down. So with that, Lawrence, take it away. And then please keep muted, and towards the end, Pauline will ask for questions and then she will unmute you. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, I'd also suggest that you can see the PowerPoint deck. This is, I just turned on the share. You're able to see the PowerPoint, is that right? Good, okay, yeah, Cheryl, you're muted, okay. But I would also, I'd also suggest, Pauline, you can remain unmuted in case we run any technical difficulties or someone needs some help. But I also recommend that if anybody has questions, they can use the chat function and send those questions to Pauline or to all of us. We can see the questions, and then that way Pauline can go through the questions towards the end, or be identifying some towards during the discussion that she might want to select for the conversation. Okay, so let's get started. I'm Larry Feinstein, and we wanted to start off with a little bit of humor, which is one of the ways of reducing anxiety. So this cartoon came out recently, and I thought it was kind of cute that we're being asked to stay put, and we're watching the gas prices go down below $2 a gallon or lower. So the universe mocking us.
Did you want to go into presentation mode, Larry?
I thought that I am in presentation mode. Am I not?
Your slides are still off to the left. So
okay, then we're sharing. Hang on, that I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let's go share. Boop, 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 boop. It's supposed to be sharing number 2, which is this one. Let's do that. And let me do it one more time. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
To make sure that, okay, so we got the audio is going to share as well. Okay, are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Without the slides, is that correct?
Correct.
Good. Okay, so this is a little bit of my background in case later you want to come back and look at the video, or we're going to be sharing it with folks who are not able to attend today. It says a little bit about my background in clinical and health psychology with background at UCLA, and a lot of what we're talking about is stuff that we studied at UCLA during my graduate time. So the overall question that we're dealing with today are, why are so many people so anxious about the coronavirus, COVID-19, and the lockdown? And recently, with there's some resistance to the lockdown, and also some of the things that are going on in the grocery stores running out of items. We're also seeing people get angry, and we're seeing a sense of loss for some people, some sadness and loss about not being able to do things that they normally do. We're going to focus today on anxiety, but you'll see also some of these techniques will also bleed over, can be applied to some of the other emotions that are coming up as well. So there are many different reasons why people feel anxious. We're going to focus on 3, because these 3, for me, the way I describe it to folks, they describe the background of angst that a lot of people are feeling. So with these 3, then when the other sources of stress or anxiety come along, they're exacerbated. So what are the 3 sources of anxiety that we're talking about here, first of all? The first one is ambiguity or uncertainty. Not necessarily a loss of control, but ambiguity and uncertainty about not knowing what's going on. The second one, anticipation of negative consequences. And the third one is a disruption of our daily routines. So normally when I work with folks in the office, we talk about ambiguity and uncertainty and anticipation of negative consequences. But with the coronavirus and the lockdown, we also have this idea of disruption of daily routine that's going on. So the first one, ambiguity and uncertainty. We don't necessarily have to have control of something, but we do, like as humans, with the way our brains work, we like to know what's going to happen so we can adjust to it, we can anticipate it. I don't have to be in control, but at least somebody's in control. We can predict what's going to happen. But the problem that we're facing today is we have what I call the cycle of addiction with cable news, where we have uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how long the lockdown is going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we do is we want to deal with that uncertainty by seeking information. What are the main information sources? It's the cable news networks, as well as their websites, as well as the newspapers. So we turn on cable news, and what do we get? Right in front of us, we get death numbers, we get misleading information, and we get conflicting experts. So from that, we watch the news, we get that information, and that information, instead of giving us, something we can work with that actually creates more fear and more uncertainty. So we go back and we watch the news some more. Now, the cable news networks know this. Is the old expression, if it leads, it bleeds. And I saw this morning, if it weeps, it keeps. So what's happening on some of the channels is they're putting front and center, they're interviewing folks who have lost somebody in the coronavirus, and yet the statistics are showing now, the newest epidemiologic statistics are showing that the mortality rate from the virus is not that much different from the seasonal flu. That's the good news. The bad news is the infectious rate is much higher than the seasonal flu. And this is what we get from the cable news networks, the three big ones, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Fox News puts right in front of you the death rate. It's up a little. Every day you can go, like you're watching a basketball game, you're watching the death numbers. And then with MSNBC, they're telling you the numbers there. And with CNN, they're constantly showing conflicting information. The mayors and the governors are conflicting, the governors and the president's conflicting, et cetera. So the question I ask people is, does this information tell you anything about how to protect yourself and your family? And the answer is no. Does it really make you feel better? The answer is no. It creates more uncertainty and more anxiety. So then the question is, well, what would make us feel better? Eventually we'll see information about tests, about antibody tests, about virus tests or recovery tests. Eventually there'll be home testing. And then when a vaccine comes out, so some of the news comes out and they say we're not going to have vaccines for 12 to 18 months. That I just dismiss it. It's simply not true. I know of 6 candidate drugs that are already in human testing. And I know that the different governments in Germany and England, United States, and Israel, they're going to fast track those drugs to get into the public as soon as they can demonstrate that they're not dangerous. Even if they don't know how effective they are, as long as they're not dangerous, we're going to see drugs coming out probably during the summer. The next concept is anticipation of negative consequences. And this raises the question, where are you focusing your attention? And a lot of people are focusing on the negative. They're worried, they're concerned. Will I get the virus? Will I get sick? Will I die or die alone? And will I lose my job or run out of money? Okay? And it's difficult to deal with taking negative consequences and turning that focus around. But I challenge people who focus on or catastrophize and focus on the negative consequences. Will your being anxious, will your focusing on the negative consequences reduce the probability of any of these things happening? And the answer is no. Okay, it actually won't. In fact, if you're able to stay calm, you're going to be more aware, more sensitive, and more focused on doing the things that you need to do in order to protect yourself against the virus. And think of it this way. If, God forbid, something should happen to you, that you did get the virus or you did get sick, okay, you're going to spend from here today to the time that happens, that's a period of time. You could spend that time being anxious about getting sick, or you can spend that time being calm and doing the things we're going to talk about to stay calm. And staying calm and avoiding getting anxious about these things happening is actually going to help your health and help your immunity. You're going to be in a better physical condition if you're not chronically anxious about these things that are going on. And the third one is this idea of disruption of daily routine. Now, normally I'd put this first in the slide deck because this is the backdrop to everything that's going on. We have, as humans, we have what we call a resilience or tolerance. We have a limited capacity. That's the first glass of water on the far left. We have a capacity for resilience. And when we think, thinking takes mental energy. Our brains do what we call cognitive shortcuts. We make stereotypes. We have all kinds of ways of assuming certain things so that we don't have to think all the time, because thinking about things takes energy. And the more energy that you're taking, it actually diminishes your resilience and your tolerance. So we now have, confronting us with the pandemic and with the lockdown, we have a pace and type of change that's incessant and increased. And then when you pile on top of that the ambiguity and the focusing on negative consequences, you have so much disruption, so many things you have to think about. We used to not think about, okay, my normal routine, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to take my shower, I'm going to have breakfast, I'm going to drive to work. All those, I don't have to think about those things. They're all basically routine. Today, I have to think about those things. I have to think about each of the little things that go on in a daily schedule. And because we're putting mental energy into all of that, you know, it taps out some of our reserves, and we get a sense of overload or overwhelm. And then when you add the ambiguity and the negative consequences on top of it, we feel that angst, we feel that anxiety in a much stronger way. And then there's many other sources, having the kids home all day, the homeschooling, the distance learning, the financial pressures, unemployment, relationship or marital conflicts, isolation and loneliness, the overbearing lockdown rules or the confusion about the lockdown rules, and then even social judgment and criticism, talking to different people about what's important and having people, you know, criticize each other. So I want to play this little video. You watch the subtitles, it's in Hebrew, but it's in subtitles, but her emotional affect is what's important. But if you watch the subtitles, it's pretty humorous as well. Pauline, make sure that you can hear this, and if you can't, you know, put your hand up or yell at me, but you should be able to hear this.
תקשיבו, זה לא עסק, הלמידה מרחוק הזה. באמת, זה פשוט לא, זה בלתי אפשרי. זה לא נורמלי. מהבוקר, אנחנו רק ביום השני, מיליוני הודעות בוואטסאפ, יש לי 4 ילדים שיהיו בריאים, תדמיינו כמה וואטסאפים, כמה מורות לכל ילד, כמה מקצועות לכל ילד, יש לי רק 2 מחשבים בבית, הם רבים מהבוקר על המחשבים, אחד המורים של הבת שלי חי בסרט שהיא ב8 בבוקר תשב לראות אותו על המסך, היא ב8 בבוקר רק הופכת צד במיטה. מה נראה לכם? המורה למוזיקה של הבן הקטן שלי, היא שלחה תווים הבוקר. מה אני אעשה עם המידע הזה? מה, יש לי הרכב של איזו להקה? אני לא יודעת לקרוא תווים. שנייה, אני מוציאה קלרינט ויושבת עם הבן שלי לעזור לו עם התווים. די, חבר'ה, מורים, תנמיכו ציפיות, זה לא הגיוני. וכל היום, איך הילד מרגיש? איך שיצייר ציור? איך הילד מרגיש? הוא כל היום בפלאפון, טוב לו. ישנים טוב, אוכלים, לא מפסיקים לאכול. איך הוא מרגיש?
So what she says, so you're able to hear it okay? Somebody wave your head, yes, you're able to hear it. Cheryl, were you able to hear it okay? Or at least see the subtitles,
Yeah,
right?
I was
Good.
able to read the subtitles and hear her fine.
Good, okay. Because what she's saying there is all this stuff is coming at her at once. The music teacher sends us the score home. She says, what? I don't know anything about music. I pull out my I have a band in the house. I pull out my clarinet and teach my kids. But she says at the end here is really interesting. She says, you're asking me how the kids are doing. Ask me how I'm doing. How am I feeling? And that's the sense of angst that people are getting. And these days, what we're finding is at the beginning of the lockdown, we were seeing a lot of anxiety. What we're seeing now is a pinballing between anxiety, anger, grief, and loss. And you can see in her emotions, she's got all 3 swirling around. Okay, so what can we do to reduce the anxiety? Let's go into some steps that we promised in the outline, okay? The first thing is to rebuild your daily schedule, including contingencies and flexibility. And this says set up a bedtime and a wake-up time. Make your bed and get dressed in the morning. This is a comment that the Marines always talk about. Exercise regularly, schedule activities, maintain a healthy diet, and time to call friends and family. So these types of things are very important. My older brother works in Los Angeles. He said the best thing that the nursery school did in his community is immediately when the lockdown happened, they sent out to all the parents a schedule, a routine schedule that they recommended the parents use with the kids to get the kids settled down, to get the parents settled down. They said it was really helpful. But one of the key things here is the flexibility, planning for change. And this is something that we're going to come back to in the presentation again later, is that we've been going through the lockdown. Get ready for all the differences and things that are going to happen when they begin to release the lockdown and we start going back to work. You're going to see all kinds of change. So you need flexibility in your schedule. The second thing is your social network. Make sure that you're not alone, that you're not facing all this stuff alone. Make sure you maintain the feeling of being connected and use your social network. Okay? So invest time by calling people. It's better if you can use video because you feel a little more connected. If you can't, then using phone calls is fine. And when you connect with other people, you can share coping methods, you can share new activities. You know, people are looking for new hobbies or new things to do in the house. Some people are just bored being in the house and they're searching for something new activity or some new movie, and also venting feelings. All of these things are very important, and these are places where your social network comes in. The next thing is building confidence, resilience, and tolerance. So the definition of stress is this feeling that you get when demand to adapt is high. And we need to be able to deal with the unknowns, to be able to deal with the anxiety. It helps us to have confidence to be able to deal with these changes. The confidence comes not just from your own ability and your own resource, it also comes from your social network. So keeping in touch with people that you know, you can ask yourself, if something, God forbid, were to happen to me, are there other people who would help out? Are there professionals that I can turn to, friends that I can turn to? So these are, these are things that are necessary. These are the benefits of keeping in touch with your social network, is to build up that resilience and tolerance and reserves of resources that you can cope with the pace of change, and especially cope with what cannot be changed. And talking to people, how are we going to, if we can't stop this, if we can't change, the lockdown rules, how do we adapt to it? And being able to work with your peer network helps with that. And I said before about contingencies, creating plans. When we don't know what's going to happen, it's especially important to create plans. Now, you can say, well, if I plan this, everything's going to change anyway. Exactly. So what you do is you create plans with contingencies. If this happens, then I'll try this. If this other thing happens, then I'll try this. Okay, and be ready for shifting plans. The situation right now is very, very fluid. You see different states opening up at different paces. You see different experts conflicting with each other. So we'll see what comes out over time, but creating plans with contingencies. And if you're not sure, again, talk to your friends. Ask your friends how they're coping. Ask your friends what plans they're making. I mean, the beginning, I remember the first couple of weeks of the lockdown, everybody was running out of toilet paper. So the question is, what are you going to do if you can't find toilet paper? And some friends who lived in a foreign country, they said, we always use newspaper. So my wife was appalled by that. I said, okay, but if there's no toilet paper, what are you going to do? So at least be thinking of what would I do in case these different things occur, okay? And then focusing on the positive. How does it feel when you focus on the positive? And so what we do here is we do a thing called CBT backwards. CBT stands for cognitive behavior therapy. And a lot of therapists will ask the question, how does that make you feel? What I like to do is I like to turn that around and I ask people, how do you want to feel? Find the motivation to focus on the positive and to use humor. Focusing on the negative and catastrophizing will make you feel what? It's going to make you feel more anxious and possibly a sense of loss. Whereas focusing on the positive will make you feel what? It'll probably make you feel a bit better. And so there's a rule that I have that I teach folks. In the absence of contrary information, you can focus and believe whatever you want. And in the presence of conflicting information, the same thing. And what we have right now with this entire virus situation is a lot of conflicting information. So if you want to believe that a vaccine is going to come out by the end of the summer, or if you want to believe that we're going to get through this okay, there's been pandemics in the United States before, during Washington's time, Jackson's time, Wilson's time, different points in our history, we've had these types of situations come up. We're going to get through it. We're going to be okay. And you can believe that if you choose to. The last part here is a recommendation, again, is stop watching cable news. Ask yourself, what type of news would be important to me? When the vaccines and the testing comes out, you're probably going to hear about it from your church and synagogue, or from your friends, from your physicians. You're not going to hear it from cable news. They're not invested in telling you that. Okay. The next one. This is important too, is we're talking about reducing anxiety. And if you're really good at it, you get to the zen of it, you can actually make make things pretty calm. Okay, but what happens if you're still anxious? What happens when you get anxious? It's not a matter of making the anxiety completely go away. You might have spots of time when you're feeling more calm. It's especially try to feel calm before you go to sleep. But there might be times when you feel less anxious and times when you're more anxious. What do you do when you are anxious? The answer is don't try to block it out. So be careful with alcohol. Okay, a lot of people are drinking more. All right, as a sedative, one, okay, but more than that, you have to be careful. When you're anxious, allow it. If you're angry, allow it. Understand that feelings pass. And what do? You do what's called self-soothing. Two of the main methods are breathing and meditating. You've heard of mindfulness. But also calming self-talk is part of self-soothing. It's compassionate self-talk. I'll be okay. I'll be fine. I have people I can talk to. I have plans to manage this, and I have my resources. But some of the other things you've heard from the medical community and from the internet is, do your physical activity. Okay, it helps get rid of anxiety. Look for joyful activities to do, and there are. And if you don't know, you call your friends and you ask them, what are they doing? Or call somebody. Using humor. Humor is very, very important. There's a lot of really funny stuff out on the internet now, making fun of the virus and making fun of, how people are reacting to it. It's some really funny stuff. Journaling. Write your feelings out. Write out your feelings in a journal. And I'll talk at the very end here, we'll talk about our Case Keepers product. You see the logo all over the presentation, which is an electronic journal. And counseling. If you need professional help, that's a good thing. You reach out. If you recognize that you do, you reach out for help. And the last idea here is pay attention to your sleep cycle and your sleep routine. Okay, establish and maintain set bedtime and wake up time. Okay, not sleeping is an indicator of anxiety, depression, and anger. And what I've heard a lot of people doing, which is unfortunate, and I coach them, please don't do that, is intentionally or unintentionally disrupting their sleep cycle by staying up to 3 o'clock in the morning, watching movies, playing video games, or the kids on their screens. If you disrupt your sleep schedule, you will make yourself more susceptible to anxiety, irritability, depression, and it will affect you physically with reduced immunity. So one of the most important things is maintain a routine sleep schedule. And if you're having difficulty with that, don't be afraid to reach out for professional help. So here's some resources. The first is ours. We are Bay Area Health Psychology, phone number and our website. You can come contact us if you need help. A lot of my colleagues, this presentation is sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, but also we're in contact with San Mateo County Psychological Association. There's a lot of therapists, good therapists, buddies of mine, colleagues of mine are very excellent therapists, are listed there. There's a provider search function. You can go there, www.smcpa.org, and use the provider search function. And if you're interested in learning about our electronic journal, you can go to our website, and you can also write to us at info@casekeepers.com. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up as our last slide and turn it over to Pauline and Cheryl for Q&A. And I have a couple of therapy colleagues of mine on the call with us. So if I get stumped, I'm going to be calling Brad and Mark in to help me out.
Well, we actually have no questions in the chat at the moment. So if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask Larry.
Hi, Larry.
I don't have a question, Larry, but this is Scott, and I have to prepare for another meeting at 10:30, so thank you for this talk.
You're welcome, Scott.
Larry, this is Byravan. Can you see me or hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you, but that's okay. I know what you look like.
That's fine. That's fine. My image is not there. I've enjoyed your lecture, very concise and to the point. And I've made notes. It's a good thing for me to make notes. And the thing that really struck me is to make up a routine and follow it, and then be sure that you get adequate sleep. I've had a very bad habit of watching some very disturbing movies in the evening, which I should have completely stopped. They are great movies. They are Oscar-winning movies, but the stories are kind of sad. And I should quit doing that. And I think that might help. And thank you. This has been very nice and helpful lecture, Larry.
Byravan, do you have anything you want to add? I mean, just so that everybody on the call knows, Byravan's a physician. He's a retired, but he's an excellent physician. Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't. Just one thing I want to add, that is that take everything that comes on the news with a pinch of salt, because everything that you hear, especially those that cause you to really get alarmed, may not really be the case, because a few days down the line, it may be negated. That's one thing. And second thing is exactly what you said, physically speaking, adequate sleep and having a sleep rhythm not be disturbed, and exercise. I agree with that. Those are the only things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Larry, would you like to unshare? Then we can see the gallery.
I will unshare.
The question is, how can case keepers help?
Case Keepers is, in the short version, electronic journal. And you share it with your therapist, or you can share it with our customer support VP. Kelly's on the line, who does customer success and support for us. The idea of journaling, of being able to write out your thoughts and your feelings, gives you the opportunity to see them. You begin to externalize them. So you have stuff running around your head. Sometimes people report, I have mice running around my head. I can't get them to stop at 11 o'clock at night when I'm trying to go to sleep. If you write them down, you begin to clarify. You can begin to pull things apart and get a clear understanding of some of the ideas that you're having. And then when you're doing that, sometimes just having the clarity of having written it down will give you some ideas about how to deal with it. Now, in Case Keepers, what we do is we also have the provider. If you connect your Case Keepers account to a therapist who can see into your journal, and just you, it's not shared with the whole world. It's all HIPAA, it's all secure. The therapist can see what you're putting into your journal and help you to clarify what it is you're feeling, what thoughts led to those feelings, and then do what we call cognitive training or cognitive shaping, which is help you develop through self-talk alternate self-statements that can lead to different sets of feelings. One of the things I wanted to share is people sometimes say, well, it's easy said to done. You want me just to stop focusing on the negative, but the stuff is rattling around in my head. It's not possible to just stop from thinking about something. What we do is we try to replace it. We try to crowd it out by intentionally thinking about or focusing on or meditating on a certain idea. It could be a positive idea. And by doing that, you create more and more time and more practice focusing on that, which tends to push out or displace the negative thoughts. Now, Sherry, you're online with us. Do you want to say anything else about journaling? Put her on the spot. See if she wants to. If she doesn't want to, it's okay. We'll go on to the next question. But Sherry, do you want to say anything about journaling?
I'm not quite sure what you want me to share, except I have a closet full of lifetime journals. I've found it very useful.
The question was, does journaling help?
Oh, I think it's very helpful in literally kind of letting it out of your body through your hand onto the piece of paper, and then being able to go back and find key words or phrases that are the ones that are really important to focus on, to think about.
Yeah, and the journal can also be pictures, not just, you can do pictures as part of the journal as well. Okay,
we had a question from Christine Harris. Would you like to ask your question, Christine? Or I can read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Okay, as a school psychologist, we are already seeing an uptick on anxiety in our students and are expecting some residual or overt trauma in our kids. Do you have any advice for those of us working with the children?
Oh boy. I'd rather not, in the sense that I don't work with kids that much. I work with families, I work with couples, but let me give a broad brushstroke, and then Mark, if you want to come in on this and help me out. Dealing with the kids, one of the things we know that if the parents are setting a calm environment, it's going to help the kids. If the parents are fighting with each other, it's going to create more chaos. The kids get scared, nervous, etc. If the parents, so when you see the kids having a rough time, if the parents are doing okay, and more, they're working together, they're collaborating with each other, they're speaking gently with each other, the parents are speaking with gentle, soothing voices to the kids, okay, it helps. The other thing too, just came into my mind, is there's a town in Israel called Sderot, and Mark and I have been there. It's the town that gets rockets fired at it all the time. And you got to ask yourself, how do the kids there, a lot of PTSD, a lot of the kids have stress reactions all the time, but the kids have 15 seconds to get to a bomb shelter, and they have to deal with this all the time. And what the parents did is they taught the kids to make a game out of it. When the alarm goes off, the kids know instinctively, they run to the shelters. And once they get into the shelters, the parents play games with the teachers and the parents. They sing songs, and they have games that the kids know how to play when they're in the shelters. So what we're dealing with the pandemic is very different from that, but think about the concept of it, that the kids are dealing with unknowns. The parents can't answer the questions. Nancy and I go for walks, and I say, what do you tell a 3-year-old about what's going on right now? You know, I don't know. I don't know what I would tell a 3-year-old about what's going on right now, except that we have to do certain things like wash our hands a lot and pay attention and stay close to mommy and daddy and don't wander off. There's certain instructions you're going to give the kids. But being calm with the kids and having routine with the kids is really, really important. With the older kids, there's always a battle over screens, how much time the kids are allowed to be, on their screens, and it's best to limit screen time, whatever. Mark, do you want any comments to that about the kids?
Just unmuted. Good morning, everybody. I think the only thing I might add to what you shared, and this is really a reflection of what some of the comments you've already made, is the idea of modeling that kids at all ages, in fact, have a tendency to, of course, look at people that they respect and model after them, observe and identify the emotions, the behaviors, the inconsistencies that their adult role models might be displaying, and then tend to copy those. And in that context, the other thing I would add is that one of the things that I have frequently shared with my own patients is the idea that the adults in the house need to demonstrate and display their own sense of normalcy and calm and self-assurance, and to focus on self-care. And that certainly holds true for us as clinicians, but even for non-clinicians. What is self-care? And the analogy I always use is the one that takes place on an airplane. Every time you're about to taxi and the airline attendant comes on and talks about the fact that should there be a loss in cabin pressure, to put on your own oxygen mask first and then assist other people. And I believe that the same thing holds true for all of us clinicians and otherwise during this very unusual time in our lives, that if we take care of ourselves, and only if we take care of ourselves first, can we then be effective in helping to take care of our kids.
Yeah. And the last point, if the kids are feeling anxious, the kids are feeling upset about stuff, draw pictures, play games, get them to express it and normalize it. It's okay to feel and it's okay to express. I'll go to the next question. Thanks, Mark.
Great. And Cheryl.
So we're almost out of time, but I lost my father this past Thursday, and he lives in San Antonio, Texas. How do I alleviate my guilt, not being able to have been with him, and it's been kind of tough.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss, and I don't know if it helps to say I hope the loss was not due to the COVID.
No.
What we do is you and I would spend some time, and I'd ask you to tell me, share more of the story with me. So let you talk about what you're feeling, the grief, the loss. We'd take some time and talk about who he was and how he mattered to you. But as far as guilt is concerned, guilt is an interesting emotion. Okay, I always ask people to take a look at the difference between guilt and remorse. Guilt is when you break the rules of some authority figure. Remorse is when you break your own rules. You can get rid of guilt by recognizing in your own life you followed your own rules. When you recognize that it would have been good if, I wish I would have been able to, but you can focus on that for a little while, but don't ruminate on it, because they're not happening. Those are impossibilities. But the reality is you look at yourself and you get validation from a husband, best friend, a partner, whoever, close friends. You did the best you could. And that's all that's expected of you. So if you regret or have remorse that you didn't do something according to your own rules, that's going to hurt a lot more than guilt. But one of the ways of letting the guilt go is to recognize that according to your own rules, the rules that you use in your own code of conduct, you did your best. You did all that you can. We're in a situation right now where you're not supposed to be going anywhere, and you couldn't have done any more. Now the loss, the grief and the loss is still going to be there. But the guilt can be let go when you first choose, and then your friends validate that you did live according to your own code of conduct.
Thank you for that.
I hope.
And I just would like to thank everyone for attending today. On behalf of the San Mateo Area Chamber of Commerce, we are sponsoring 3 webinars per week. You're all welcome to join. You just need to check on our website and our calendar. Tomorrow we are doing a special program for restaurants who are desperately hurting, and Rakuten is rolling out a new program. So we have invited all of our restaurants to attend tomorrow. Everyone is welcome though. And then on Thursday we have a financial planner talking about, is the stock market making you nervous? Each week we are just providing different programs. And Lawrence, I want to thank you so much. This was fabulous.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate you doing this for the chamber. And well, there's my phone, so it's nonstop. I'm going to sign off, but thank you everyone and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence.